everyone, it's Tails from Studio WyldFurr here. I've just recently downloaded the latest build of Gimp, which is Gimp 2.1.24, revision 3, and I thought I'd give it a go building a map with map tiles. So let's have a go. So first things first, to create a blank canvas, you go File, New. Now, this is just going to be a little test experimental map, so it's just going to make 900 by 900. You probably want to go into the advanced options and change resolution to 72 on X and Y. And that should be all you need to do. Now, obviously the size of your map would change on the basis of how large you want to be. So for example, if you want it to be 10 grid squares wide by, say, 10 grid squares tall, if I just go to my calculator, so because I use a standard of 180 pixels per grid square, you'd go 180 times by 10 equals 1,800. So you'd make it 1,800. And this is, say you wanted to have a height of 15. So you'd go 180 times by 15. Then you'd put 2,700 in there. So that's how you work out how large the canvas is going to be. But for this little experiment, let's just go 900. I'll get rid of that and go OK. And here's our blank canvas. Now we could just start using this straight away, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a grid. So let's come over here to Image, Configure Grid. You could probably do this with guides, but I'm going to do it with a grid. So I got here by Image, Configure Grid, and this brings up this little panel. Might change this to crosshairs. There we go. Okay, so change your spacing to 180 by 180, and that should all be good. There you go. Okay. Now you can't see it because we've got to actually switch visual on. So we go View, we go Show Grid. Now, because I set in the settings, Configure Grid, I set it to be intersections, so it's just showing the intersection. Whereas if you set it to be like a solid line, it's a solid line. Or you could go dashed, so it's a little dash. Or you could go intersection dots, where you can hardly see it, it's just a dot. Or crosshairs. Let's actually put it to dashed. That looks kind of good. Like, don't worry about how it looks. It's just a guide. You're not going to see it in the final version of your map. So, okay. Now we've set it to be displayed with View, Show Grid. Next thing we want to do is we want to have our art pieces snapped to the grid. So we click on View, Snap to Grid. So that when we place things onto the canvas, they'll lock into place in this grid pattern. Okay, so we're ready to start building. Now, I'm working on a Windows computer, so my methodology is that I have the file browser window that I can Alt-Tab between the canvas and it, and I can see it in the background. But you know, whatever methodology works best for you. Like, you may have this window on a different screen. The main thing is so that you can go into your resources, your art assets, and click and drag, to place them onto the canvas. And that's basically how I work, is I click, drag, plonks them onto the canvas. You then use the move tool to move them into place. And as you can see, it sort of snaps onto the grid, which is quite cool. Makes the map building job a lot easier. So now, part of my method as well is I work with folders. So each asset that you place is placed down as a layer, as you can see here over in the layers palette. Now, if you look down the bottom here, you'll see a little folder icon. It says create new layer group. So click that, name it, because this is the floor that I'm building, floor. And then you put these pieces, just drag and drop, into the floor. So that way you can hide the floor. And you'll do the same thing when you do the walls, when you do a roof, or when you do like the wilderness or grass ground. Okay, so I've got those little pieces in there. Now, whenever you drag and drop a new piece in, it'll be placed above the piece you've currently got selected. So if you just select the, for example, if you're placing more floor pieces, select the top one in the floor, and they'll be placed with that. So for example, I just start putting these in. I'm just gonna Alt Tab, dunk, put it there. So let's just say, actually I'll put them up the top here. So let's just say there's a room, a square room here. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that down to one single piece, make a new group. Whoop, it just appeared within there. So let's call it walls. Okay. Now, the map tiles I'm using at the moment is a new set that I'm working on called the Catacombs. So let's go to the rubble rock walls. Put down a corner. Now let's make certain, so it's appearing in the right folder. So these walls are appearing in the walls folder. And just pop that one there. Now I'm going to need a side piece. I'm going to have an entrance way, so I'm going to go to cornerstones, and where is it? I want this one, and place that there. So as you can see, because it's all snapping in place, I'm just using the zoom tool to zoom in and out, and if you default zoom will zoom in with a click. If you hold down the control key, it zooms out. So it's a good way of looking to see whether everything's looking right. And if you want to get back to the normal view, if you look down the bottom here, there's a little pull down, and just put it back to 100%. And there you go. So there's a quick little room. So let's close down our walls group, go back to our floors, and start putting in the next room. Back to the rock floor. Back to our move tool, so we can move these around. So let's say there's a intersection here, so there'll be another room here. As I said, this is just a little test map. I'm just quickly popping things down just to show you how it's done. So I'm not sort of taking a bit of time sort of working out, do I specifically want this to look like anything in particular? go. So we have a room here, a corridor that comes out, and another big room, and something here. So let's do. So we have a corridor that comes along. So let's go back to our walls. Start putting in our little walls. So that one can go there. Now, if you're a supporter on Patreon, you can actually use. Whoops! I just moved the wrong thing. You can actually use. So that's a feature of Gimp, that it actually picks up whatever the mouse is currently under. Useful and annoying at the same time. So let's go. Yep. Put that back. Put this back in place. There we go. Something I didn't know that worked. Huh. Okay. Nope. Go back. Okay, so we're here. So let's plonk down. There we go. So there's a corridor coming along. So we're going to need an edge there. And then a doorway. Whoops. I wonder if you can turn that off. Like I've literally only just installed the program, so I'm still working it out. So that doorway just means that you've got to make certain you're actually clicking on the artwork of the piece that you want to move. Because if you just randomly click, you'll be moving whatever is underneath the mouse, which may not be the piece you want to move. Okay, so let's go corner section. And another one. Dunk. And put that one, oops, there. So that's another room, bit of a corridor. Let's put another room here. Back to our floor. Let's start with that one again. Put it there. There. There we go. And I'll just quickly fill this area in. Go. So minimize that. Okay, let's put the walls in. And rubble rock walls. So we'll start with doing the doorway sections. Now we just need cornerstones. Oops. Just there, and that one. just here. Oops. Now let's build in the walls. There we go. Get up the top. And a corner. And another corner. Just quickly finish off this little room down here. And there we go. So that's a quick way of putting together a map. I'll just turn off the grid. There we go. So that's a very quick way of building a map. We've got our walls, we've got our floor, corridors, doorways. So from here, what you want to do is you want to save a working copy which has all of your layer information in it. So you can come along and later on like add furniture and props and other bits and pieces to this map. So what we do from here is go File, Save As. So I'm just going to put this on my desktop and call it Sample. And now this XCF is, I think, Gimp's default file extension. So we'll just go Save. So I've saved that onto my desktop. So later on I can come back and open this up again and maybe, change the wall layout, change the floor layout, whatever I like. But if we want to use this in, say, like Fantasy Grounds or Astral Desktop or whatever virtual tabletop you like, you want to save it as a JPEG. So what you do is you go File, Export As. So I'm going to save this on the desktop again. Now you want to click on this little button called Select File Type by extension, and it gives you a list of all the different extensions. I'd save this as a JPEG image. That usually gives you the best file compression. It's going to result in an image that's not too big. And you just go, change the file name, save, select where you want to save it. So you could, maybe put it somewhere else, but I'm just putting it on the desktop, and I'm calling it Sample JPG. Export. Gives you some quality. So this slider is the compression quality. The higher, the better looking the image, bigger the file size. Lower, the image will be compressed, so for a smaller file size, but it'll look a bit jagged, a bit of artifacting, blocky. That's the trade-off with having a small file size. You could probably get away with about, I don't know, 60. That's probably, you could put a comment in here, like by default it says created with Gimp. Wonder what advanced settings we've got. Yeah, probably don't need to play with those. But once you're all done, hit export, and that saves it out onto the desktop. That is pretty much how you make maps in Gimp. It's just a case of a bigger map, more squares, bigger pixel size, and adding more pieces. I hope you had a bit of fun, and hope this has given you a few ideas on map building in Gimp. Thank you very much. Please hit the subscribe button and the like button. Please come and visit me over on Patreon. If you become a subscriber to me on Patreon, you get access to my project library, which is basically everything I've ever built. Until next time, have a good night, good day, and have fun. Thank you.